Hello and welcome to Deconstructing the Construct, episode 69. I'm Lisa M. Harrison, and first things first, I just want to address all the lovely messages that I've had over the last few months. Messages of concern, but I'm fine. I am not ill. I haven't been got at or silenced, as some of you seem to be thinking. Really just two things. Very 3D stuff. I've moved, and I moved states from from Queensland to New South Wales. Some people misunderstood that and thought I'd moved to the States, the United States, and then disappeared. No. Moved states, that was weeks in the making, happened just before Christmas, and then you have Christmas, and then it's school holidays, and catching up with family and friends, and quite frankly, I was just exhausted and needed some time. The second part is energetically, I started to pick up on some things towards late December that took me by surprise. And I really wanted confirmation for myself before I said anything. And really only yesterday on the members call that we did on the Friday did it feel like enough pieces fell into place for me to finally share what I feel is happening. So I'm doing that now. This is probably going to be a bit longer than previous ones, and it's going to be a combination of a recap of what I believe this reality is, how I think it's working, and new information about what I think is happening now. And the only reason I'm on camera is so you can see I'm not actually dying or anything. I'm not seriously ill. Okay, so where to begin? The other thing, well, actually, before we even go there, the other thing I need to address is the way, and I've said this many, many times, the pink sphere, for example, is metaphor. I mean, a lot of us get visuals, and there's a million different visuals it could show itself up as a million different metaphors. Because I actually think that we can only be spoken to through metaphor in the energetic, because I don't actually think our little conscious minds here can truly comprehend the reality as it actually is. All we have is metaphor. And if you really look closely, if you get past the words, if you get past the metaphors, if you get past the descriptors, you'll see that a lot of people are saying the same thing all the time. We're just using different words to describe it. So for me, whenever I sensed what we sort of collectively call a wave of energy coming in, it always looked the same. It was in my mind's eye, it was a huge tsunami wave of water, a big wall of water. And it would always, everything always came in on my right, going across to the left. And it took time to even understand my own imagery, depending on the color of the wave, depending on what the crest looked like, depending on the speed, depending on the different nuances and textures in the water, depending on all of those things. They were all clues as to something about the signature of the wave itself. One of the things I've come to understand since December, this all started to kick in late December. And for those of you who follow Q, you'll be very familiar with the phrase, future proves past. What I think has happened is that everything that started to kick in for me energetically at the end of 2016 and everything that subsequently happened with contact with Lulu and what we were told between October 2016 and March of 2017 is actually everything we needed to know and everything that was going to happen. If you've been listening long enough, and I know that there are a lot of new people, so this is why I'm trying to round out the picture a bit more for the new people. I'm sorry if you've heard all this before and it's a bit redundant for you, but that's what dawned on me in December. If you've been around for a while, you know that my feeling is this construct was supposed to close. Now, whether that looks like the event, whether it looks like ascension, whether it looks like whatever you want to call it, at the end of March 2017. I could not see past March 2017. I've also said that the time periods between March and October of any year seems to be one particular cycle. It's like events play out. And then from the October to the March, it's almost like an echo of those events, an echo of that. But on top of that, when we got to March of 2017 and this didn't end, it didn't end for a number of reasons. One, okay, how do I put this? We didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't understand the veracity of the virus that's controlling this thing. We didn't understand how many booby traps were in place. You had to be, it's stuff that could only be known from within. Couldn't see it from outside. I'll leave it at that, just as a really simple explanation. So a series of events had to play out throughout the rest of 2017. Energetically, the years seem to be going from March to March. Now, I know there are calendars that operate that way. And you can all correct me if I'm wrong, I know you will. The astrological calendar, I believe the Jewish calendar, and potentially 2 or 3 others. I think the old Roman calendar, there's a bunch that go from March to March. So technically, we're not actually in the energy of 2020 yet. We're still in 2019. 2017, a series of events played out from March 17 to March 18. And then 2018 and 2019 were repeats of that. And every time we did that repeat, more was exposed along that theme. More was resolved and more was clear. It was like we went deeper each time, but it was essentially the same series of events, the same realizations, the same things coming to light, but it just more and more and more. And every year I couldn't see past March. It wasn't until we were well into April or even May sometimes that I started to be able to see forward again. And I feel like I've just been given an answer as to why that is too, which I'll get to. At the end of October last year, 2019, leading up to that, in September, early September, I started to feel the pink bubble again. Now, this is something that first came in for me at the end of 2016. I saw this energetic wave coming in, but this time it was different. This time it didn't look like a huge tsunami wall. This time it was pink, and it had different texture and different qualities to it. And it wasn't a wall, it was a sphere. So that it was to tell me that this particular one was very, very different. This was not like anything we'd seen before. Everything about it was different. And if you were around back then, the series of events, if I remember correctly, sensed that pink sphere, felt it over many weeks, sort of moving in. Suddenly I was in it. Then it felt like I moved into a white room. I was literally standing in a completely blank space. It was all white, no windows, no nothing. Was there for a couple of weeks, was there by myself. Then there was a sensation I started to feel physically as I was walking around where I used to live, like I was walking through water. And where I used to live was Lismore at the time in New South Wales. And come March of 2018, we actually did get flooded, like really badly. And everywhere that I'd walked and felt like I was walking through water ended up being underwater. So I put that down to a more prophetic kind of experience, that I somehow knew the flood was coming. But it was bigger than that. Because I also say that everything that happens in the energetic has to play out in 3D. Because what happened in the energetic could not play out the way it was, like the energy was fed in, but it missed the mark on the energetic and still played out in the physical in a distorted way. So it literally played out as flooding. Okay. Am I making sense so far? Is everyone following along? Okay. I think that whole experience back in 2016 for me, what I was picking up on the energetic is actually playing out now. That was my future cruise past. The pink sphere were left in terms of the visual and a sensation once I'd left, once that whole experience finished at the end of March or in March, and showed up for me again, as I said, early September, I think. It popped back in. This time it looked a little bit different. This time it wasn't off in the distance, slowly making its way in. It was right here, and it was complete. I could see it all. And it didn't take long. It moved a lot faster too. There was an acceleration. I did a graphic, which I've shared before, which I'll throw up now, that told me that on the 22nd of September, that pink bubble was going to hit us. We were going to be encapsulated in it. And that we would, say, walk the path of the timeline that we'd already done twice before throughout September and October. And at the end of October, it felt like something was going to fall away from underneath my feet. And that was those loops, the 17, 18, 19 loops that we'd been doing, dropped away. As of the end of October, early November, we've been in a completely different space. We've been inside this pink sphere, which to me is home energy, and the scripted repeat series of events that we had to go through is gone. So we're writing it now. We're in a position where we can write our own path. And this bubble, like I said, started on the 22nd of September and it goes until the end of March, and I can't see past March again. The other thing that happened that I was picking up on come December, a lot of little things that kept telling me future proofs past. Everything that I saw play out back then is starting to play out now. But the other thing was, and I'll try and throw up a visual for this, I've always used this cube to explain this reality. What to me is the wall of the cube that's on the right-hand side went down, and that is what allowed the pink bubble to come in. And the pink bubble has filled the space. Now, this is both personal and collective. There's also many outcomes here. There is no single outcome for every individual, every being inside this construct. There's different outcomes. So I guess I'm only speaking to those who share my outcome. Wherever I'm going, and whatever I'm doing, and whatever this looks like for me, and those who I'm sharing this experience with are the ones who will relate to this the most. So I guess those who are on the same path I am, you are individually in this pink bubble, which is providing protection and buffering. And collectively, we all are in this pink bubble, right? Okay. Now I need to go back to about a year ago. I'm hoping you're bringing all these pieces with you the way I've had to and putting them together. About a year ago, I had what I thought at the time was just a really weird but intense daydream. I knew there was more to it than that, but it happened under strange circumstances. So I was sitting at my desk, and suddenly this visual played out that was so intense in my head that I could not pull out of it. And it was like I was looking down at the earth, like a Google Earth view. And I was seeing just this very particular section of beach that looked like a small private beach. And I could see a force field around it, this big bubble force field. The water was a different color outside the force field. The grass was a different color outside the force field. And inside was what I would call people from home. And the words that came were out of phase space. It's the out of phase space. And I was above looking down, and I knew that I could enter that space and be technically outside the construct, like in the construct, but not of the construct. Not as affected by it, not influenced by it. There was a sense of freedom inside this bubble that is not felt when you're in the construct. There was a lot of people there, and next thing I get a phone call, and I'm literally like this, looking down at this place, talking to this person saying they want to come, just give me the address. And I'm like, well, I can't. I'll have to meet you and bring you in, because I knew that anybody outside of it couldn't find their way in. It was out of phase. It was like in that movie, The Black Panther, where unless you know what you're looking for, right? What I didn't realize, only made a couple of weeks later, talking to my friend, within the hour, she was in Melbourne at the time, and within the hour, she had a very similar experience. She was driving her car. She had this whole scene play out in her head, and it involved this outer space. She too had to go outside of it to pick up people that she knew to bring them in because they wouldn't find it. The whole thing. She saw the geography. We compared notes on what this place looked like, and it was the same. So, okay, what's that about? What is that? What the hell does all that mean? And hang on, I need to plug my computer in. Okay, done. Okay, so bearing in mind, again, bring all these little pieces with you. At the end of December, or in December sometime, I was pretty sure at this point that the wall was down, pink sphere had come in. But what hit in December was the sensation that we were starting to move, that the pink sphere was carrying us out of the construct. And that felt huge. And that wasn't something I was prepared to say at the time. Because I didn't understand why. I mean, all of this is supposed to happen like that, right? Whatever's going to go down is supposed to happen in an instant. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So I needed confirmation. And bit by bit, I've been getting it. So what's happened more recently, last Tuesday, I set the intention to have a look and really try and see and confirm for myself where we were in all this. And what happened was, it was like for a moment, just a moment, my little pink bubble, my protection, whatever, was dropped. And I could see and feel where we actually were. And it was horrible. I felt sick. I felt nauseous. I had head pain. I thought I was going to throw up. It was just, bleh. And then the bubble went back up. I had to go walk on the ground. I had to do a few things and drink some water and, make myself feel better again. And where we were was in this wall of the construct on our way out. Now, this wall it's not a single wall. It's a series of frequency fences. And I can't get an exact hit on how many there are. But they're all different. They're all a different frequency. They're all a different pattern. And, the first one, it's like this way is up, and then the second one, that way is up, and then the third one, that way is up. So if you were pulled through that too quickly, you would literally be sieved or shredded. It's happening slowly, and it's happening with this protection bubble. And that we were, at the time on Tuesday that I did this, we were in between two of the fences. And felt like I was feeling the energies of both. And because they're both so different and throwing off different frequencies, that it was turbulent. Felt like you're in a washing machine. And really, quite unpleasant. But the other distinct feeling is that the first one is the worst. It's like as time went on and the prison walls were built upon, a new frequency layer was added inside, and it got stronger, more dense, whatever, just nastier as they came in. So they get lighter or less dense. You know how, less dense as they go out. So technically, the journey should get a little easier on the way out as we go. But that's the feeling. So there's that. And that to me, that's huge, that we are collectively on the move out of here. So what is all this about March and all of that? Several confirmations over the last week that there is a series of events that have needed to happen, and they are in this time, like 2017, they needed to happen but didn't. 2018, and I couldn't see past them because they're like a wall of data, a wall of events, right, one after the other. They didn't play out in September. So when we got to 2017, when we got to 2018, it was even thicker because it was more condensed, and in 19 it was even thicker because it was more condensed. Same series of events, but because they never played out, there was like more energy added to them each time. So what I'm getting at is that there is a series of events that are so close together that once the first one goes, it's going to be a real domino, house of cards, that is this block that I can't see past. So at this point, I have to assume that it happens before the end of March, because that's what I'm thinking this thing is that I can't see past. So obviously that may change if other things come to light, but that's where I'm at now, that it's that huge blockage of events that have not been able to happen yet. But the potential was there for them in 17. The potential was there for them in 18. The potential was there for them in 19, but they didn't. And I think they absolutely have to this time. I don't think there's any getting around it. So that to me explains why I can't see past March at the moment. What else is there? The way people talk about timelines and alternative realities and alternative dimensions and all of that sort of stuff, I see as layers. Now, there is a top layer, the original layer of the construct that we created. Every layer underneath that is a distortion, a manufactured timeline, whatever you want to call it, right? This thing ends when we all wake up at the top layer. It's inception reality. I keep saying that, right? And what we're doing is waking up through the layers. And you're not in every layer. You skipped some. We are waking up. We are picking up that aspect or merging or whatever you want to call it with that aspect of ourselves that is on that layer. And then we just keep going and we're waking up through the layers. And when we all wake up to that top layer, it's done. That's my metaphor. So we are doing this at our own individual pace. And sometimes it happens really quickly. And sometimes you have to have a pause, you have to adjust, you have to whatever before you move up to the next one. And we get out of sync with the people around us. So you might have a few days, you might even only have a few hours or weeks where it feels like you and a loved one or whatever are really in sync, right? And then you have a moment, you have a realization, you wake up to the next level, they haven't done it yet, and you're completely out of sync. Until whatever. So we're having these moments where we're in sync and out of sync, in sync and out of sync, not just with the people around us and their relationships, but with the reality around us. The Mandelas are still happening as we wake up through these layers. That's one thing. And you might wake up to a layer of the dream where that person isn't even in your life, and there's a complete disconnect with them. And then you're back. So the only advice I can offer there is just like breathe through it, don't panic, don't act on anything at the moment. Like allow these things to just flow through, center yourself, back in your heart, all that. And see what happens next. Because there's always going to be a next. The other thing that a lot of people have been feeling that I think are part of my collective, the collective I'm in, is job's done. And this started back in December too. My job here is done. Don't need to wake anybody else up. Not my job anymore. That's somebody else's job. And a sense of a contract completed or a sense of freedom from responsibility and obligation that is bigger than anything you can quite name. What's the other thing that got picked up on? Okay, so as we are moving out, that wall, or this series of walls, whatever, are also acting as a filter, you could say. because nothing of the dark is getting past it. Whatever of the pink sphere is already on the other side of that wall is clean. So inside the construct is getting, I guess you could say, like the virus itself is not getting past the wall. So it's more and more virus. It's getting condensed out of us, out of the environment, out of the codes. It's all getting cleaned up as it goes through this wall. And more, it looks like we're, okay, if we look at this like a computer thing again, like a computer game, all made up of pixels. Let's say you've got pixels that are full of virus and pixels that are full of light. And as the ones that are full of virus are being deleted, they're being filled with light. They're not just void. They're not just empty. They're being replaced with light. So it's filling up more and more with the light. And once it reaches that kind of critical mass, the light all gets pulled, which is the pink bubble getting completely pulled out. I know we all hate dates. I hate dates, but I keep getting dates. Now, if you've been around for a while, you'll know March 4th keeps coming up every year as well. And there was a very strange coincidence with the date for me. That book, The Last President, it talks about it talks about on March, there was a prediction that on March 4th, the dawn would not break over the United States. And apparently it didn't that day over Washington because of this fog and blah, blah, blah. But I just found it very interesting that that's the date that was picked, March 4th. I keep finding what I would call, and what few people call 1 year deltas, 2 year deltas in the information from home and what we then experience here in real time, including being told in December of 2018 that the migration is happening. That we were told, I believe, exactly a year before, realising that, or having this awareness that we're on the move. Took a few months for the pennies to drop. Oh, there's another thing, and for those of you who hate Trump, I'm sorry about all these connections with Q, but there's more. Where did I put it? One of the members had a dream and was given the words, I think. Trump and Julia Fazer started a website. That's the words that she woke up with. She's like, who's Julia Fazer? So she gets on the computer, does a search. Now, this is back in September of last year. Now, Julia Fazer, for those of you who are musicians, know that it's a guitar pedal. Trump and Julia Fazer started a website. So she then went through and read all the product reviews. And these are quotes out of the product reviews for Julia Fazer. All analog, chorus pedal, vibrato, C as in SEA, inflected tones, subtle multifunction approach. The essence of your guitar is still very much present, but at the same time, it's doing very otherworldly things. Julia can give off so many different vibes. When she went through all these different things, her interpretation of what she put together was between realms, frequency modulation, and broadcasting enhancement device. Trump and Julia Fazer started a website. Make of that what you will. Everything, I've been saying this for years, everything's event driven, right? Not time driven. Which is why these events that we're coming up to, this domino of events is so important. And there are markers. We see markers all the time. And it's like ticking off a checklist. The time between events varies because it all depends on the momentum, the energy. It depends on us, what we're focused on, what we're ready for. What we're giving our attention to, which I guess is what Q means by who you follow or what you follow matters. It counts, whatever he says. So, going to ask the guys on the call with me, is there anything I've forgotten? Anything I should elaborate on? Paul?
Yep, there we go.
There you go.
I had to unmute. I think you've covered a lot there. I mean, I think you did a really good job at kind of bringing forward since the last DTC. I'm just kind of responding here from a couple of images and feelings I had as you were speaking. I'm not sure exactly how they might apply, but certainly a number of the astrologers that I follow are all pointing towards the year of the rat that we're entering tomorrow. I think it's significant that you're doing this DTC on the new moon in Aquarius, age of Aquarius. The whole structure that is shifting. And of course, we have the spring equinox coming and the significance of springtime and the ancient traditions. So it just feels very connected, very on point. And a couple of the images that came to me, oddly enough, was one, a birth. And I had the image of the uterus and the wall before birth. And we've been feeling this momentum for a while. And I think it's interesting you did the 69th DTC. So I'm thinking of the 369, the significance of that, and what happens when the waters break, and what happens when the head crowns. And I just saw an interesting news thing tonight that Queen Elizabeth is now sick. She's not going to some events she hadn't gone to forever. And Meghan are leaving the royalty. The crown is breaking in a way. So it's except for the crowning here of this birth.
Yeah, nice analogy.
Yeah, and the contractions, the pressure we're feeling as we move through the density and what that must be like as we can remember being an infant, being born into this construct. I'm also thinking of being in the world, but not of the world. And you were talking before about this time of being in our hearts and observing, you know, the construct, the fractals of ourselves, all the ways we've been trying to be in the world. If we can just observe, because we're all going through this birth, we're going through the healing, and we're being present to the heart where we create. And somehow these images and pieces were coming to me as you were speaking. And I just really appreciate how clear and how you brought together these pieces. I just wanted to contribute what I could, but thank you, Lisa. It's awesome.
Well, thank you, because you did remind me of a couple of things. Back in 2016, as I said, 16, 17, the pink bubble hit and I ended up in a white room. I think that white room, at the time, I interpreted it as a quarantine. But I also think now it's a blank slate. And we're in it now, in a sense. a space of creation. Since the end of October, when the script that we were walking dropped away, we're now in a space where we can manifest without the barriers, without the obstacles. And it's a space for us to relearn. We're back, we're not relearn, but remember what it is to actually manifest in the way we were inherently capable of.
Exactly. I saw a YouTube recently where they talked about giving birth. And when we're born into this world, immediately we're programmed, all well-intentioned and everything by parents and schools and growing up. But what you're saying is so true. This is the birth that is ultimately us creating without the programming. It's freedom, it's sovereignty. And this birth, for all of us, comes from within.
Totally. And there is something about where we're sitting within ourselves as to how this manifestation plays out, because there are days in amongst all of this, or whatever, where it's like the simplest of things requires so much to get done. Like everything has to be done the hard way. And then there's other days where it all just flows and drops into your lap. So I think that's coming from us as we slowly but surely break out of the programming. And those expectations that it's too good to be true, or, it should be hard, all that stuff. Now, I did say that I actually physically went to this place that I saw. Did I say that? Did I actually share that?
No.
No? Okay. The place that I saw in that daydream, or that I was looking down on Google Earth, I physically went there on last Tuesday. It's a place I'd never been to before. Used to be a privately owned beach. The geography was exactly the same. I didn't realize it until I got there. I'm sitting down on the sand and this feeling came over me, and then I looked around and I was like, oh shit, this is it. What does this mean? And I believe that when I had that vision back then, a year ago, it was to tell me that when you see this place, you'll know you're in the outer space. It's the representation, it's the marker for you being in the outer phase space. And that, like I tried to describe, is like you're still in the construct but not of it. And you're surrounded by and buffered by the energy of the pink bubble of home. And the more you tune in with that, the more you connect with that, which is as simple as being in your heart, visualizing it, the easier this ride becomes. Because outside of that is, like I said, it's horrible. Oh, the physical symptoms. Some of you may have gone through a period of headaches, unusual headaches, or even head pain. For me, it was more like pains, like little sharp little pinpricks all over my head. Headaches triggered by food was mine as well. I couldn't eat or drink anything. It would just bring on a headache. That's past for me, but I think that's connected to the big journey of starting to go through the wall. The ringing in the ears. That you may experience it differently as we go through each of these different frequencies, you may be starting to pick up on the sounds of each one because they're all different. So if they're changing for you, it could be, that could be why. It's one ear, it's both ears, it's high, it's low, it's a different frequency, it's all over the place because we're actually navigating our way through these frequency fences. What I'm wondering at the moment is a lot of the visuals and imagery that I've gotten, so many other people have gotten too, of like, you know, locks clicking into place, may mean the turns that we have to make to navigate these different fences. Because like I said, this one, this way's up, then that way's up, then that way's up, then that way's up. It might be the twists and turns we have to make. I'm still feeling with that one. On the 14th of January, I distinctly got a message of 14 days, which takes us to the 28th. But I wasn't clear. What I wasn't clear on, I'm still not clear on what to expect on that date. And it may just be personal. But the 28th feels big. I've talked about the white dragon before. I think it was in connection to the white dragon and potentially finally hearing from them. But we'll see. What we're seeing play out globally, politically, all of that, to me is the perfect reflection of what we're navigating, and it is definitely connected to these events that are going to go bang, 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 bang. There's a scene, there's a movie, you've probably seen it, The Kingsman. Samuel L. Jackson's in it. And at the end, everyone's heads explode. But they do it with fireworks. It's like everyone's head goes off in fireworks. It's not gory. I keep saying that. Heads will explode. And they are exploding. We know that. We've seen it. I mean, how many people have had one of their unfortunate rants put on the internet? But in a good way. I don't mean like that. I don't mean in a someone loses the plot and just goes on a ridiculous violent rant. I mean in a good way, because it's fireworks. It's wake ups. The other thing that's played a huge part, and actually started for me back in 2012, probably, is that tones, sound was going to play a big part in whatever was going to go down. And that's come back up again, big time. As well as, well, as part of that, language. Language was brought to my attention. And in the truth movement and the conspiracy worlds, I realized that everyone seems to think the English language is fucked. And it's a distortion. And it's a curse. And it's something that was done to us to take away our true ability to communicate and blah, blah, blah. I know all that. Been down that road. Different perspective is that language, sounds, words are the way that we bring energy into density. It's how we create matter. It's how we manipulate matter. It's how we dematerialize and materialize matter. First there was the word, right? It's how we bring energy into form. Makes sense to me that there would be different languages around the world that bring different things into form based on the template of the geography and the template of the race of the people who occupy the land. the one thing we have forgotten and mostly lost is the ability to use both vocal cords. What do they call it when you do?
Throat singing?
Throat singing, yeah. When you throat speak, with an energy from your heart and combine the two and bring in your intention, that's how we manifest. That's how we manifest. That's how we create portals. That's how we make magic. What if language was a gift? Not even a gift. What if it was just the way that we did things? We know that sound has, I mean, even Dr. Emoto's work, I mean, I know you can think it and have an effect, but you can speak it and have an effect. Something to consider and potentially play with. Speak your intentions and practice. There's YouTube videos on learning how to throat sing or throat talk. But try and get that vibration happening. So that was also big for me personally. All right, thank you everyone for joining me here and for watching later. I've had many requests to both open the doors up to the members area, which I promise I will do before the end of the month, as well as put together some more webinars. So I'm onto that as well. I've just really enjoyed having a break. So be good, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.